I'm so sorry. I just had to remember to click the record button so we capture all this for everybody. Good, good. I've got one more question for you guys before we dive into the presentation. So what does BIM mean for construction when often the design is complete?
Okay, well, often, BIM gets associated with the design phase, but it's really the construction side that gets to leverage all that BIM-rich data. Fabrication, installation, clash detection, that sort of stuff happens primarily on the construction side, whether they're working with coordinated models or afterwards. This is really where they get to leverage the information that comes. So while the information might be captured earlier on, this is where we can actually consume it and think of things like handing over information to owners, for FM, so that they have a consumable format and not have 40 binders sitting there.
And for that matter, like you said, when the design is complete, but it's a lot of times not complete. They start pouring concrete before the design's done, or they think the design is done, and then the owner and the architect get together and make changes, right? And so, this sort of enhanced communication that we were talking about, and making sure that the guy in the field has the most current design, so that he's doing the layout where the design now says it is, instead of what it said a week ago.
Good.
It's good for that.
And overall adoption of the layout process, how we're going to demonstrate today. What are the customers, Dan? What's customers' experience with that? Are you feeling like we're getting that there's better adoption and more?
Yeah, much more of the contractors and all the trades out there are adopting this technology. It's hard not to show up to a job site and see this equipment everywhere. Most people are doing it. If you're not, catching up, or if you're not following the technology, you're going to be behind in the game. So it's out there. It's here now. It's constantly getting tweaked to make it better and better. But it's definitely has traction, and most people in the industry need this in order to keep up.
Excellent. I say we dive right in. So give me 1 second. I'm going to make a couple clicks here, and we'll turn off the camera, and we'll switch things over.
Hi, my name is Joseph Whitney. I go by Joey. I am the BIM team project manager. I help facilitate all aspects of BIM regarding our BIM team and beyond. I also oversee the services account management aspect in BIM 360 product line. I've got a bachelor's degree and a master's degree, and I don't know, I guess that's about it. I've worked in the construction industry for quite some time, and 4 years here at PPI now. So with that, I'm going to jump into my presentation. Can you see my screen?
I can.
All right.
I think we're good to go.
All right. So like I said, we are the BIM team. Here's a little photo of us. We're not posing at all. This is completely natural. So today we're going to be talking about this, glue layouts. We're going to jump right into what layout really is, what it means, this whole process. But we're also going to take some deep dives into glue as well. If you've been following our webinar series, the last one we did was docs, BIM 360 docs. This one is, focusing on BIM 360 glue and the layout component. And next week, I believe, we'll be covering BIM 360 field. So stay tuned for that one as well. So with that, here's the kind of the overall arching platform today of BIM 360. I just want to talk a little bit about what it is, and then we can talk about our component of it. So BIM 360 team, for those of you that may have some familiarity with C4R, you probably have used this in some way. BIM 360 docs, if you were with us last week, this is what we covered. This is that container for pretty much all aspects of BIM 360, and ultimately the hope is that it's going to come into play with all of the design applications at some point as well. You can do issues in here, RFIs, markups, 3D view 3D models, 2Ds, hyperlinking, associate sheets, all this great information that you can do with a document management platform and beyond. BIM 360 Plan, this is the link construction pole planning tool. Import your P6 schedule into here, and get your work breakdown structure so you can get your PPC as tasks are completed. BIM 360 Glue. This is really what we're here to talk about today. You guys in the industry may have some familiarity with Navisworks. This is kind of like a Navisworks light in the cloud. It's more about collaborating and coordinating rather than just clash detection and timelining and that sort of stuff. It's a powerful tool. It actually takes has some tie-ins to Navisworks, as well as it's really about leveraging information out in the field and pushing information out there for the guys that are going to need to consume it. Layout. This is that free application that comes with Glue that allows you to control the certain total stations with your iPad and actually view a 3D model for layout, and also collaborate with the guys back in the field or in the office. BIM 360 Field. This is the field management component that we will be talking about next week. This is where punch listing, QA/QC, commissioning, handover. This is where you gather all that information and keep track of all that information for this next component, which is BIM 360 Ops. Ops is the operations management portion of the BIM 360 platform. This is really about providing the owner with a work ticket management system from day one. So from all this information that you've captured, you're able to just port it over, and from day one, the owner is able to have a work ticket management system. So jumping in here, talking about Glue, or talking about the process, Dan's got a few pieces of equipment here today. We'll be showing those in just a few moments, but they're all our Topcon products. In addition, we're going to be talking about several Autodesk products, Navisworks, Point Layout, Glue, obviously, and a little bit of Revit in there as well. So typically, we've shown this presentation. We've gone through the typical process of creating your points in your model, exporting them out, handing them over for layout, and then bringing them back in. Today we're going to take a fundamentally different approach. We're going to be talking about leveraging the cloud for instantaneous, essentially, coordination between the field and the office. So what we're doing is we're still doing that same point creation process, but instead of exporting out a job file and then physically handing that to somebody in our data collector, what we're doing is we're gluing our model, and by leveraging Glue, we're able to instantly access that information on our iPad. It updates very quickly. So once the model is glued, it automatically syncs with our iPad, which is controlling our total station, performing layout, and then we can bring all that information back in for as-building and deviation analysis. So with that, I'm going to jump in and hand things over to Kurt.
I started thinking about this yesterday because we're going to be showing off. We're going to be showing off the software. And,
you're just going to be showing off.
I know. I know. And so I thought instead I just show you how quickly this can happen. I'm Kurt Egley. I'm an application specialist here, and I deal with the Autodesk side of the software and work together with like Dan, for example, who's deeper into the Topcon end of things. So you'll see how these two things play together real nicely. So let me just start with this, and then I'll back up once on this. So here's a model that I'm working with right now, and see that I want to get the pipe hangers that are on pipe and duct hangers points to Dan in the field. In this case, I'm working with Revit, so it's quite a bit more automated than some of the others. Here's pipe points, starting number, say OK. I have it put on like blue sugar cubes here for you so you can see a little bit easier where the points are at the end of each of them. And then I just turn right around and say, let's glue it. And that sends it up into the cloud. And I choose which views that I'd like to have Dan have on his iPad. Now, you don't have to go to Glue with this. A little later, I'll show you that when I push it up into the cloud to Glue, it's actually synchronizing automatically over here to BIM 360 layout as well. And that's what Dan's going to be using to control the Topcon robotic equipment. So if we're looking now at my iPad hitting it, and here's the model that I loaded up earlier. And it comes across in about, in my experience, been maybe 2.5 minutes or something like that for the model to be processed in Glue and synchronized over in the layout. And away we go. Okay, so just that easy like that, all right? So as I start diving into this deeper, just understand it does not have to be complex. You can just quickly start running with this. So let's start with, I'm going to do more of a concrete one with this one then. I'll start with one thing that I'd like to get to Dan in the field is everywhere where there's a grid intersection, I'd like to have those control points. So I start in Revit like this because that's where the virtual concrete is poured and virtual hangars are placed, and it is part of the construction documents in the first place. So we put the points in there for them in the field as well. So for example, here's 5B. I'd like to know where those points are. So with that, I say I want to work with control points, and I'm going to put a prefix on this. Let's say control point with a hyphen perhaps, and I'll start with say 200, and I'll put a description on it of the grid here, for example, too. Now place it on the grid. Would you like to append the names to the description? So like A2, that sort of thing. I'm going to say yes. And then I'm going to choose a custom level here because this is like my master's is in architecture, and common thing that we might do is to set the ground floor at 100, not at 0. So we don't have any negative values when we get into the basement. So now it's just asking me to go ahead and select the grid lines. I'll just select them all and hit finish, and I'm done. Okay, now we've got points out there already. So if you come take a look, I made blue sugar cubes out of these two so that you could see them as well. Let's go ahead and tag them next then. So I go to add tags, and I'm going to say use the tag and do them all, and include leaders. Okay, now I've got them tagged. So if, for example, if I head down to this end down here, I can move these off and reposition them in case I'd like to use this as a background. The points are already there, but say that I was exporting this out to the FC5000, for example, the Topcon data collector. I could use this as a background. Now, it took the control point prefix that I put on here and the point number, actually with the tag as well. If I want to show a description, if I think that would be helpful, I can say OK to that, and it'll put the description on it as well here. So I can say it like that, grid Q15, grid Q14. So these numbers, though, in terms of order, it actually starts putting the numbers on, and I believe in the order that they were created. So I can do a renumbering before I hand that over to him, where I say automatically renumber that. Automated. And make control points here. Let's go with 200 again. And I'm going to use upper left to lower right, so it kind of goes on a diagonal across my screen, and does 115 points get renumbered. And then down here in the lower corner, you can see point 313, 312, 314 here on the renumbering for that. So, so with that, now I got some control points in here. Let's go to Let's go to a 3D view for this one. Let's use this view right here. This will be more interesting for us to work with. You'll be able to see it. So with this, being a Revit model, this item right here, this element knows it's a wall, and this element down here knows it's a foundation. And I have a wall and a slab footing button in Autodesk Point Layout, so I can say wall, for example. I like to make a wall point, and I'll put a prefix on it as well here of wall, because this will show up in the description then that gets handed over to Dan a little later. Would I like to mark the bottom or the top, or both? I'm going to say both. And would I like it to follow the finish or finish center for that? And over here, if you're a Revit user, you know, like when I selected on the wall, there was a type associated with the wall, you know, a 20-inch concrete or something like that. It might have said. We can have it get in and get that description and fill that description in as well. And that'll be part of the file that gets handed over to Dan as well. And let's say OK. So now you can see here it's added the additional points at the top and the bottom finish for the wall around there. Now this below here is slab. That's seen as a separate kind of an entity here. So I'm going to do slab footing, and it's a wall point, but I'm going to say put a slab on here. Slab point, and we'll say starting with 500 for them, and we'll mark the top and bottom for those as well and say OK. And the donut spins for a little bit, and now you can see I got the little sugar cubes, so the points have been created at all of the corners there. So you know, if I were to select one of these, just so you can take a look at the properties, you can see here that it said the prefix that I wanted on here, slab point. That one happens to be 778, and it knows down here that it's a bearing footing, 72 inches by 12 inches for the point description. It extracted that out of the type that it is. So with that, you know, this presentation is about, well, at least centered around Glue and around BIM 360 layout. I just am going to take a little side journey here once and just show you that if at this point I wanted to hit export, I could create a drawing file to go with this and a magnet job file. And that's something that I heard Joey say just a little bit earlier. That's what we're talking about there. And also Joey brought up that next week we're going to concentrate on BIM 360 field. I'll probably revisit this for that presentation where we can create field issues and create attachments for field as well if we go down this route. So this one's about Glue though, so I'm going to cancel out of that, and at this point go back to this button that I showed you a moment ago to glue it. And so I'm going to say go to the this project that I have and put it there. I have multiple sites that I could go to as well, and multiple projects within those as well, because you know, the reality is you might be working on 4 different projects at a time or more, right? So so with that, if after I glue it, it heads up into the cloud to the Autodesk BIM 360 Glue service. And here's the 2 projects that I was just looking at a moment ago. You can see the currently added ones, the ones that were recently modified anyway. They come up in the list for my projects. Some of these have red next to them, like there's no new markups I can tell in the hospital project. But if I just hover over one of the red ones, I can see what kind of activity has been going on, or in this case with markups, clashes, and views as far as people adding new views. Now, what we're working with this time is this little medical center. So let me head into that project once. And you can see here now to a more granular level with regard to this. I can see all the activities that have been happening lately and who's been doing what and what day and time they've been working on them. Also in this area, I can upload models. Now you saw me hit the glue it button back in Revit, but you can upload models here and or other documents as well. Additionally, here you can see, like at a very granular level down to the model, the clash that was created on that one, the markups on this one, extra views created as well on this, and the date and time associated with it. As well as, do you see how this one has a symbol here next to it? That one has been shared with fields, so we'll come back to that next week as well. So let me open up the merged model here. Go ahead and open that up in the Glue app. Now this is the desktop version of it. What Dan's going to be running, well actually Joey will run the BIM 360 on the iPad, and Dan will be running the iPad with BIM 360 layout as well. So, so anyway, I can navigate the model here. That's been glued into the cloud here, and some of my tools off here to the side. You can see that I'm set right now for the pointer, so that if I click on an object, I can find out information about it as well. I can do measurements in this because you don't have to have Revit to get this, to be able to access the model here. This might be to the extended crowd for where they want to get some areas or shortest distance between or point to point, for example, like I went from this point to that point over there, 8 foot and 3/4 inches, for example, in the Revit model. So let me clear that out. So with the models then, here's what has been glued in place, and it's a merged model, so I've taken MEP, architecture and structure, and have glued those together. And you can see that as I'm looking through the model, if I select on anything, it'll find that object that was placed, and I can drill down into it and find out information about, for example, the equipment here on the roof that's associated with it, energy, recovery, etc., etc. with that. So additionally, while I have this one open, you saw a little bit earlier I had an icon up there that an equipment set had been created, and that's where I can do that to share that with field as well. So we'll backtrack on that next week too. So with that then, I think we'll get into views in a little bit here, but views that I can create and from within this project, I can cut sections through the building, create a view off of that, jump back to the rooftop units, go to the overall view. I can share these views, and I can either that or have them be views for myself. So, so with with a view that I decided to create here, I'm looking at it, and maybe I'd like to do a markup in here. Go to markup and add a new markup. Brings up tools for like text, for example, like more clear, let's see, clearance needed here, for example. And freehand or circle, for example, with the circle tool, you can create like an ellipse out of it as well. So anyway, markup is in here too. So probably the most common use for this, though, is that draws people to Glue to want to spend time here, is the ability to do clashes. So if I do clash. Like I was saying earlier, that I had brought together several models, the mechanical and plumbing and structure and architectural models together. Here's my chance to do a clash on those. I created a new clash between the structure and HVAC. And within 2 inches, it does an analysis of that based on what the model is and how it's changed. And it looks like I have 5 different clashes in there. If I select on one of them, it brings up granular information about it, what the magnitude of the clash is. It's an open clash. It's between a floor and a rectangular duct. And so, you know, before this model gets any further, I can find out where the problems are with it, jump around from clash to clash here, and hopefully it's actionable then, that you come in and actually make a change about this, right, as opposed to say, okay, we got a clash, let's still go build it that way. Right? The one that I guess before I hand this over to Joey, one last thing maybe I'd like to show is if I come back to here a little bit earlier, the file that I was working on. Let's see if I can find the model here. Yeah, so structure 3. Here it is. So here's what it looks like in Glue then, and that's the one that was in Revit, got pushed up into Glue, and has synchronized over to BIM 360 layout for Dan to use. Here's my little sugar cubes on that one as well. Okay, with that, I'll hand it over to Joey.
All right, so Kurt showed off the desktop application for Glue, and there are many ways that we can utilize Glue. First of which you've seen, but there are multiple ways that we can access the same information from our Glue model so that we can leverage this information, not just for the field, but you know, whether we're away from our regular computer and don't have access to, say, Navisworks or Glue, there's a web version we can get to. There are multiple ways for us to get to this information. So here I am in Navisworks. There's whenever you install the AEC collection, there's 2 forms of Navisworks that really get installed. There's Navisworks Manage, and then there's Navisworks BIM 360, or both are managed. This one, the BIM 360 version, just automatically goes into the let's connect to your Glue site. They both still have the same BIM 360 tools. This one just has a little more connectivity that goes with it. So as you can see, I can go to open, and I can open straight from BIM 360, you know, Control B, get it that way as well, or just come to the BIM 360 tab, and I can get to that same information, Medical Center, go to the models, and we'll take a look at that structural model, 3, no, right there. I don't know if you guys caught that real quick. Inside of Navisworks, before I actually selected it, that you saw right here, it says version 2. Important thing to note is BIM 360 actually version controls all of your models. And it's something we can access later, and I'll show you that just in a moment as well. So Kurt mentioned views. Views are different than viewpoints. You know, we have viewpoints in Navisworks, but in order to coordinate and collaborate and share this information back and forth and just make it more lightweight, BIM 360 utilizes something called views. So inside of views, we have shared views and my views inside of BIM 360. Well, inside of Navisworks, since I can utilize the views, I can only see the shared views though. So if I open up shared views, you'll see that there are 2 views. One is I created in Navisworks, so I named it created in Navisworks, and one created in Glue, so I named it created in Glue. I know I'm very original. But just to show you guys how robust and lightweight this really is, if you just come into here, go to our structural model, load for a sec, and we're in that view. If I just go to views, let's say I create a new view. Instant view, watch this. Save, it's in my shared views. I come back here to Navisworks, I go to shared views, and I click refresh. Boom, instant view right there. Isn't that cool?
Sweet.
Yeah, right?
Ooh, ah.
Markups are treated a little bit differently. Markups live inside of BIM 360, so you're not going to be sharing markups with Navisworks, but the views are just as important and just as robust. That aspect that I was telling you about, though, with version control, if we just go back to Glue real quick, get out of this screen, and go to my models, and just select one of my models, just right-click. I can go to View Versions, and if I double-click one of those, it'll take me straight to that version, or I can just select and download those for later use. Actually, just to view it offline or share it with somebody if I'm not ready to publish this into my model or roll it back into my model. Another thing that Kurt mentioned was equipment sets. Well, that's something else that we can access from Navisworks. We can access all the properties that we created. So we create the equipment sets in Glue. We're going to talk about this next week a little bit more in depth when we're talking about field. But ultimately, the idea is that we can bring this information back into, say, Navisworks. And ultimately, if your model is created in Glue, you can bring it all back into Glue. And one last tab here is the project admin. This will bring you to the web version of BIM 360 Glue. Pretty cool. I mean, there's a lot to it. So BIM 360, there's a lot going on here, but it doesn't have to be this way. This is all role specific. If I have, say, a contractor, I'm the general contractor, and I have a subcontractor, I'm not going to want them to be able to delete my models or anything like that. So there are different roles associated, just so that I can control that. So maybe it might make sense for my subcontractors to be something as limited, so that I can they have access to add and actually collaborate with us under markups and views, that sort of stuff. They can even run their own clash tests, but they don't have privileges to delete stuff. And that's really important to keep in mind when you're doling out or inviting people to your project. So I mentioned there was this web component. I apologize for, there it is. This web component, it's just as simple and lightweight as the Glue desktop app and the iPad app that we're going to show. There's one really cool thing that I really want to show since we're talking about layout, and I think it's very important, is creating point sets. So if I just wanted to create some points, before I send them to Dan, let's just run search. You can filter these by roles, descriptions, all the information he's put into layout, using the layout tool. I can actually search by that. So let's just give these a name, points for Dan. Layout, sure. I can add the set, but one step above that, since Dan is a member of my project, I can notify him of these points and give him a little message, lay these out today. I don't think he's going to be able to lay out this many points, but I'll give him a shot. There's like 1,500 in here. And if I
Dan's kind of an overachiever. He might be able to.
I've seen him work. I wouldn't put it past him. So just click send it, and he'll get a notification of that as well. Now I mentioned the iPad app, and there's really one more aspect to this. It's that iPad app, but being able to take this data with you anywhere, out in the field, that's really where this power is. I don't have to lug around my $6,000 BIM laptop to run Navisworks and Revit and all that stuff. I can leverage that same information on this $500 iPad. We talked about views a little bit. For those of you familiar with using Navisworks viewpoints, you can still use those inside of Glue. If you just go to your settings, go down to the app, way down here, click Glue, and as you'll see, I can turn on Show Native Viewpoints. If I just get out of here and I open Glue, you'll be able to see those viewpoints. Oh, we're in the wrong model. Let's just go here. That'll work. Just show you these viewpoints real quick. It's a different project, but you'll get the idea. So if I go to my 3D views, there you go. I have my viewpoints. And if you look at this, it's just as easy, it's actually easier than other applications. There's fewer buttons to work with, less mistakes that you can make. And then again, if you take away, roles and limit roles and take away responsibilities, they'll have less features that they can actually mess up for you guys. And again, they see shared views in here as well. So anything that you want to associate with the project, they'll be able to access from here. Markup, shared views, these 3D views if you're pushing them out from Navisworks or even Revit, if you're saving views from there. So I think that's really important as well. The biggest difference, though, is inside of this, you don't see this clash detection piece, and that's because you don't really want your guys out in the field running clash detection on iPad, and I'm not quite certain that iPads have the quite horsepower that you might need to do clash detection. While most of this is happening in the cloud, you're still going to need to refresh and all that sort of stuff. So definitely makes sense that we keep that on the desktop. Talking about the iPad limitations here, there's no right or wrong way to kind of put your models into Glue, but best practices, as far as I've seen, are to break up your large models by floors and zones and all that stuff. And it's not just because of iPad limited memory and all that sort of stuff, but it's also about managing your clashes. It makes it easier for you to run clashes and associate certain items on certain halves of the project, because not everybody's working on the whole project. So I'm back here in this project that we were looking at, and there's a few other tools and functionality here. I've got joysticks where I can zoom in and fly and walk by. I can tilt my iPad and do all that sort of stuff. Just to zoom in real quick, I just want to show you that those points carried all the way down, and you can see them here in this model, little blue sugar cubes. So with that, this looks very similar to what Dan's going to show you, this Glue app, to the layout app. But with that, I'm going to turn it over to Dan, and he's going to jump in and show you just how simple the layout app is.
So I'm going to jump in the app in just a moment, but the first thing I want to just kind of show you here is the different options of the Topcon robotic instruments that we have here today. I'm not going to spend much time on these, just going to get to the app here fairly quickly, but just mention one thing about them. This is the Topcon GT, the fastest instrument out there on the market today for layout. Usain Bolt can't even outrun this one. We got the LN100. This is a compact, rugged, self-leveling robotic laser, easy to put up, never made setup so easy in any robotic instrument. And then the DSI is the one I'm using today, just here in our conference room. But this particular instrument is an imaging instrument. We're able to take photos, see streaming video from the controller, not particularly in this app, but in their proprietary software. We can collect photos, take reflectorless measurements right from the data collector without returning to the instrument if it's up on a column clamp or somewhere out of access. So these are the instruments, the robotic layout products. I also have certain tools, XY positioners, that will assist in the layout where we can bob up or bob down to points on the floor, on the ceiling, using different types of devices. So you can kind of see some of these are combined with a laser. So there's other tools out there to assist you in this application, these being a couple of them. Got another smaller one back here. But basically different tools for the different applications. One may be more useful in certain applications than others. So just after that quick overview, I'm going to jump into the app now. So let's jump over there. If you can see the app here, this is the same project that Joey was just showing us. And I've made the little sugar cubes actually red, so they're highlighted a little better on the screen here. But basically what I can do is in my model here, I'm just using 2-finger movements to move back and forth through this model here, so I can zoom in, zoom out with just my fingers on the iPad. I can turn on and off elements of the model. If I have separate models or just points and things I want to see, I can turn those on and off. One of the other things I can do here is, Joey mentioned markups. I can come in here and I can just jump right to this markup right there, and I can see where those are. I can share those with other project managers or other people associated with my project. So markups are easy to do and draw on the screen here. With the layout software, we can jump in here easily and actually calculate difference I'm sorry, the length between points or the inverse distance between points. So if I select 2 points, and then I kind of rotate this around, sorry there, as I'm zooming out, you can't see that, but there we go. So I've just captured 2 points. You can see they're 8 feet apart right there. So just quick and easy on the fly, I'm able to see those elements, take the measurements right between them. Kind of going back into the layout portion of this, there's a lot of different information on this screen. And so maybe I need to isolate or hide some of these objects. I can select some of the objects. So let me back out 1 second here. So I can select these objects. I can select the properties of this object, or actually that one was the hide the object, but let me select this one here. I can select the properties, where then I can see that all the information about that object in this column on the right-hand side here. I can also, like I mentioned before, we can highlight them and isolate them if that's the only project that I want to work on. So now I can work just on this block right here alone without seeing every other element in it. But once I jump into the layout portion, which we're going to get now, so I'm jumping into layout, and I have the entire project here again. There's still quite a bit of information up here, and I might want to navigate through this or clean up some of this without having to touch everything. So one of the things that I can do when I go into my layout screen is I can actually filter everything by elevation. And what I'm going to do is run this down to just a smaller view, so then I can clear out everything that's in the way. And then now I can really zoom in and get there and just use my fingers to navigate through the screen here. But you can see that there's my total station right there, set up above this point, and all I need to do is connect up to my rod, and there you go. Just like that, I can actually see where my rod is real time within the model as I'm moving around the site. So to be immersed within the model without it actually being there physically is very quick, very easy to use, and very nice to see. In regards to layout, all I'm going to do is select a point like this one that says 4678. It's kind of it's above another point right there because it's on that footing. But 4678, if you look in the upper right, it's actually telling me how to get to that point. It's saying that I need to go away from the total station and right 2 feet. And I'm looking at it here in a 3D view. What I can do is actually look at it in the 3D view if I want, or I can go to a plan view and look at it from the top down. And as I get to that location, the instrument will actually tell me where to go, and as I position myself over it, it will turn green once I'm within the tolerances that I've specified. So that's a way that we can lay out right there very easily. Another thing that we can do, let me jump back out here to this view, is I can, let me spin this around a little bit, I can also stake out to a line. I can select different elements, 4678, 4675, done. And if you look up there on the right-hand side of the screen again, and then we look top down, you can actually see it's telling me where I need to go in order to reference that line. I can see that I'm offset of it about 1.5 feet. I'm along it a foot, almost 2 feet. But I can really see wherever I'm at on the job site or in relation to the objects that I'm staking out. The other things that we can do with this is we can actually collect points. So if you look at the top right up there again, I have my collect toolbar. I can simply hit collect once, and it's going to give me the option to input information about this, whatever it may be that I'm collecting. So I can hit save. It's going to collect that feature. You can see it's now there on the floor. I can come over here again, and if it's just the same element again, I can actually just double tap the collect field. And it says I'm going to change it to the highest number, but there I've just captured it again by hitting double click. One of the other things that these instruments can do, depending on which one you have, is that some of them can actually even lay out with a laser pointer. So if I say lay out this point, it can turn automatically, turn on the laser pointer, and I can see that red dot on the wall, on the floor, on the ceiling, wherever it may be. So this is kind of a quick run through of this, but basically with all this one-person system can be used to lay out foundations, footings, utilities, walls, hangers, bangers, sleeves, pipes, ducts, bolts, electrical plumbing. So basically from the ground up, layout with Topcon and Autodesk has never been so easy.
This is Kurt again. I wanted to kind of follow up on what Dan was just talking about, how he can collect points in the field, and that brings us around to the collection and bringing it back for QA QC purposes to be able to do, in this case, I'm doing slab deviation analysis. So here's that same model that we're working with. And this time I'm going to import it from Glue, and it's in the PPI group in the medical center, and it is 3, I think is the one that we're working with. Structural 3, right?
Correct.
3, okay. That mark is done. All point, let's do all points. Yeah, here we go. Okay, I bring the points in, and then their control points I'm going to want stake out for this. They're staked, and then say OK, and then deviation style, and say OK, let's go. And I'm going to do this one and this one here, and let's do this space here too, and finish. And it tells you that some of them fell outside, maximum deviation, and then it gives a color scheme here with the sliding rule where red are the high points. You can see I got some high points back in this area, and the green is a perfect pour, so that area was perfect, and these are a little low. So like in this case, for example, if we're collecting this and you still have some time to do something about it, you know, we can fix that concrete before it's poured. So with this kind of solution, the Autodesk BIM 360 mix of products that and services that Joey was talking to earlier in his slide, it really helps for data and communication to flow freely, and consequently, you know, this is about efficiency, but also about quality improvements on your projects.
Okay.
Oops. This is Joey again. Wrapping up, I just wanted to kind of revisit something that Dan said earlier on the call. He mentioned, you know, while we were sitting doing the Wendy show, he mentioned
Thank you for giving me credit again.
He mentioned that technology is constantly being tweaked and getting better, and Topcon's done a great job. They've got the fastest gun in the market. They're building great devices all the time. But I really wanted to talk about this Autodesk piece as well. What's Autodesk doing with this? How is it getting better? So to really get there, we have to talk about the Forge platform. Autodesk has been working on this platform for 10 years. The goal is to have everything really tie into this platform. But really, what does it mean for us as consumers, us as users, to utilize such a platform? So really, Forge is going to be the foundation for all these BIM 360 products. They're all going to be run on here. And what that allows us to do is leverage all the microservices and the series of APIs to run things like automated clash detection, or create RFIs or issues from clash, and then just send those out to other people. So allow that to, you know, bring it back into the design applications, such as markups, all that stuff. So we really have this great understanding of what this coordinated BIM effort really is. You know, everything is connected from start to finish, and, you know, back to the start again if we needed to. That's really where everything's going. Excited for how everything is right now, but also to see what comes next. And with that, if you guys have any questions, I know we're pretty much at the top of the hour, but let's answer whatever we can now. But also, if you want to shoot us an email, we'll be happy to take those as well.
On our website, theppigroup.com, and you just go to the You're Invited tab, and you can see all of our event and webinar offerings there and get registered. Job well done by the BIM team. Thank you, Joey, Kurt, Dan. So appreciate you guys taking the time and showing us a lot of information, a lot of good stuff. Thank you very much for joining us. Appreciate it. let us know if you have any questions or concerns, and we'll be happy to address those. And looking forward to seeing you on the next one.